Welcome to another episode of the Liberated Woman Podcast. It's been quite a while since I've been able to tune in with you all and create another podcast episode because we have been on the road for the last several months, traveling, making our way from Costa Rica all the way to Mexico. And it's so amazing to finally land in one place. We are now in a place called San Cristobal de las Casas, which is in the middle of Mexico. It's a mountain town, a mountain city. And it's really beautiful to be surrounded by the mountains that feel so grounding and really envelop you and hug you and hold you and connect you to the earth. So I am so grateful that we've landed here after being on the road. Those of you tuning in for the first time to my podcast, hi, my name is Shani. I'm a rebirthing breathwork facilitator, ancestral healer, light language channel, and hugely passionate human being on the liberation of feminine expression, feminine sensuality, feminine embodiment, and liberation of your humanity so that you can become a sovereign being. I hope. Those of you that have been tuning in for a while, thank you so much for coming back and listening again. Every single time that you tune into this podcast and every time that you share it, or every time that you send me a message saying that you've really enjoyed the episode and something resonated with you, it really means the world to me. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day to tune into the Liberated Woman podcast. It would mean the world to me if you could continue to share it with women that you think could really benefit from hearing what is spoken about in these podcast episodes, whether it's me talking on my own or whether it's when I invite guests onto the podcast and they have so much magic and wisdom to share. And the more that we can share our stories, the more that women can express themselves, the more that women can be in their creative expression and share truths that have happened for them, the more that we can then give permission to other women to liberate themselves too. So thank you so much. It really means the world when you share this podcast out with your friends, with people that you think could really benefit from it, when you post it on Instagram and you tag me on Facebook, or you send it into WhatsApp groups. It really supports me and the work that I do, and also supports other women who are on their journey to liberation. So I'll give you a little bit of background of where we've been. For those of you that have been following me on the gram, or you're in some of my containers or WhatsApp groups, or you come to my women's circles, you'll know that we left Costa Rica at the end of April. And our journey from Costa Rica to Mexico was a really challenging one. We faced a lot of difficult situations along the way and really having to navigate that and regulate our nervous systems to get to where we are now. And sometimes you have all the tools in your toolbox, but when you're on the road and you don't have a stable place to be and you are moving every 2 to 3 days, it can feel quite hard to really ground and create a sense of safety in your environment. So I'm so happy that after spending the last sort of 3 weeks prior to this, traveling around Mexico, seeing some incredible spaces, seeing some sacred sites, Mayan ancient temples. We went to Palenque, which is an ancient Mayan ruin, and had a really beautiful experience there because we bumped into a Mexican guy that we know from London, from all the festivals that we go to in London, in the UK, sorry, the Medicine Festival, Love Jam Festival, all about love, back to the roots. And he was here with his brothers doing a ceremony on the sacred land of Palenque. So we got to join in that ceremony and witness them in their traditional indigenous dancing, in their culture, the Chichimec culture, which is from the north of Mexico in the desert, even though Palenque is in the Yucatan region. Which is very hot and very humid. So that was a really beautiful experience. We got to travel to an amazing island called Holbox and spend some time in the ocean, and we got to spend some time in some really cool cities. But now we have landed in San Cristobal de las Casas, and it feels really good to be in one place and grounded. So what came up for me? So what came up for me really a lot on this journey between Costa Rica and Mexico, and constantly being on the road and constantly being on the move, was a lot of ancestral wounding around the displacement of my ancestors, the displacement of my peoples that were in my lineage, and how much this then affected my lack of safety in the body. And I want to talk about this in today's podcast episode. So I'm going to start sharing a little bit more about my personal journey with ancestral healing, and then I'm going to focus some of our episodes in the upcoming podcast episodes on like specific things that happen when you start to heal your ancestral wounds and the intergenerational trauma that happens and is passed down to you, that you as the cycle breaker get to say no to the story, and you get to feel the story, witness the story, and work with your ancestors to accept those parts of your lineage, and then dissolve the parts that no longer serve you to move forward in your life in this present time and space. So if I was to tell you that my ancestors have come from several different countries in different regions of the world. My father is from Israel, my mother is from England, my great-grandmothers and great-grandfathers on my mum's side were from Russia and from Holland, and on my dad's side from Egypt, from Bulgaria, and from Algeria. So I have a whole mix of ethnicities, cultures, and indigenous ways of living within my cellular system. And my people, my ancestors, from stories that I know and from an inner knowing, an inner gnosis, I know that my ancestors were never safe to stay in one place. In fact, they were kicked out of several countries because they were Jewish or because of their cultural identity. And they've had to find new homes and new places to set up. They were nomadic. And I've always felt this sense of gypsy nomad in my being. And I couldn't work out for so long. In fact, I even gaslighted myself for so long as to why I couldn't just stay in one place, why it was so difficult for me to ground myself in one location for a period of time and feel safe being there. And this is something that has followed me around all my life. So even as a child, I was born in the UK. We moved abroad when I was 8 months old. Then we came back to the UK. And I always had this desire for traveling, for moving, for changing, for shifting things up. At 18, I went to Australia for 6 months. And then when I was at university, I was always looking for the courses that would get me to study abroad. And unfortunately, my degree of theatre and performance didn't offer that as an option, but I would go away at every single possible opportunity because I loved exploring other people's cultures and foods and traditions and the way that they would live their lives. It fascinates me. And all this time I was kind of exploring and looking for other ways of living. When I was 22 and I was going through my abuse, so I just ended my abusive relationship, and I had a very, very bad car accident in the same year. And if you want the full story on that, you can go back to episode 1 where I share in a lot more detail about that story. I was already a teacher at that stage, so I'd finished my degree, I'd gone straight into a teaching degree, and then went straight into my first teaching job. And by 25, I was already had like this itchy feet again. I wanted to get away. So I moved to Singapore to teach, and I was only supposed to be there for 2 years, and I ended up being there for almost 5 years. That point, I decided, well, I need to go and explore my ancestral roots. And I moved to Israel for 4 years, almost 4 years as an adult, where I also taught in an incredible international school with Palestinians and Israelis, and international students from all around the world. And our mission was about peace in the Middle East. And this has been like a huge, obviously, contention, a topic of real uncomfortableness and shadow and difficulty that's been playing out in the collective at this time. And it's got me thinking a lot about displacement of peoples, of, where are we supposed to be and who really owns land and where do we actually belong? And it's been playing up so much for me as I've been traveling around Costa Rica and then into Mexico. And it actually really dysregulated me because it made me feel so unsafe that I realized that my ancestors never had a place where they felt like they belonged. They never had a place where they felt safe, and they were always on the move. And I'm realizing how much this has been playing out in my own life, and how I've been carrying this ancestral wound within my cellular system, and how it's never really felt safe for me to be in one place for any one length of time. And I've tended to move every 3, 4, 5 years. Some people might say that's normal. Some people might say, yeah, but you've got a sense of adventure, and you're gypsy spirited, and you're nomadic spirited. And yes, there is that. But for me, I know it runs as a deeper ancestral wound. So I've really had to sit with that during my travels and really work with my ancestors to not fully let go of the story because it's part of who I am, but to accept that this is part of my story, to accept that this is part of my lineage. And this is what we do in ancestral healing sessions. So when I have beautiful people that come into my one-to-one spaces and journey with me through ancestral healing, we're not just clearing the stories from the body, because those stories are a part of you, and your ancestors are a part of you. And if it wasn't for them, you wouldn't be here now. So thank goodness for them. We're so grateful that you are here now, and that you actually get to do the things that they didn't get to do. You get to liberate yourselves in ways that they did not get to liberate themselves. And so we're not just releasing these stories, we're actually bringing them up to the surface. We're witnessing them. We're working with your ancestors. We're asking permission. We're giving them offerings. We're working in reciprocity with them so that you can move through some of the residue of the energy. You can move through the residue of the energy that lives in your body. And when we start to dissolve that and move it and shift it and bring it into consciousness, you get to rewrite your own story so that you are not passing that down to your future generations. You're not passing that down to your children or the people around you, so that one day they don't have to do this work that you're doing to break the chains, to change the stories, because your ancestors couldn't. You will be the ancestor that changed the story, and there'll be other stories that they have to change. There'll be other stories that they have to break. But you are doing this work, not just for yourself, but for the liberation of your future generation, for your legacy, and for the collective. And so with my personal journey around this ancestral wounding that's been coming up around not feeling safe to stay in one place, always being on the move, and really feeling my ancestors in this space, like, help, it's not safe to be here, you've got to keep on moving. I've had to work a lot to communicate with them and be with them and offer them comfort, to let them know that actually, yes, I'm okay. And I am safe, and it's okay for me to move when I make that choice from an empowered place, not because somebody is kicking me out, not because it doesn't feel safe to be there, not because I'm in danger of my life, but because I made the empowered choice to move from one place to the next. And I also can make the empowered choice to stay in one place and know that it's safe. And so this is what I've really been working on over the last several weeks as we've been on the move, and it's not been easy, and it's brought up a lot of uncomfortable feelings within my body, and I've had to sit with that, and I've had to express it, and I've had to experience it. And sometimes that looked like crying on a Mexican bus at 12 at night. And sometimes that's looked like sitting in meditation and talking and conversing with my ancestors and seeing what it is that they need from me. And sometimes it's looked like breaking down on my bed in hysterics. And other times it's looked like shaking it through and dancing and moving. And other times it's looked like giving myself breathwork journeys so that I can release this stagnancy, this energy that's like in my body that makes me feel stiff and tight and frozen because I've not felt safe, because I'm feeling their unsafety in my body. And it's been really beautiful because now I've come to a place where I can make that empowered choice to say, thank you so much to my beautiful ancestors for all that you did, for all that you sacrificed so that I can be here having this conversation with you on this podcast, so that I can be here doing this work to liberate myself and then liberate other women, that I can be here to hold space for other women's liberation, and that I can be here to use my voice to even share these stories. I'm just going to let that one land for a moment. How grateful I am. And we know when we're going on an ancestral healing journey, when we're looking back at the generations before us that made up what we are now, there is so much in that thread, so many stories woven in, so many lives woven in, so many gifts and triumphs and victories woven in. And it's such a beautiful thing to be able to go on that journey of ancestral healing. It's such a beautiful thing to witness. Hey, there's this thing that lives in my body. There's a sensation coming up for me. I don't think it's mine, but why have I felt this way all my life? And to learn to work with those ancestors in reciprocity, to learn to offer to them, to learn to give to them, and then learn to dissolve some of that narrative that lives in your body so that you can rewrite your own script, your own story, reclaim your power, reclaim your sovereignty, and say, no, the story stops here with me. I don't want my future children having to feel the same way that I did because my ancestors felt unsafe, or because my ancestors lived through this, or my ancestors could not do that. And it's such a privilege that we get to sit here in this day and age and do this kind of work. It's beautiful. It's an incredible journey. So I just wanted to touch base with you today on this, share a little bit about what's been going on for me in my personal ancestral healing journey, about what's been happening behind the scenes. And I'm going to come in with a lot more stories around how you can work with ancestral healing, what it might mean for you in your lineage, how you might want to access healing around certain shadows and feelings and sensations that are coming up for you in your body. If you are curious to know more, if you would like to dive deeper into your own personal liberation journey, if you know that you are the cycle breaker in the family and you know that you want to say, no, the story stops here with me, then reach out to me and book your ancestral healing session, because when I take people on these journeys, they go so deep, almost instantly. Past lives, ancestral generational curses, traumas that are living in your body, gifts that you've been passed down by your ancestors. All of this are things that we work on during our sessions. And whenever you come into a session, we bring in your ancestors, we honor them. We start with a prayer of protection, of gratitude, calling upon the benevolent spirits, guides, and ancestors that are going to be there in the space to support you on your journey, so that whatever comes up for you, you feel safe and you feel protected, to know and be ready to witness what you need to witness so that you can start to shift shift the trauma that lives in your body and rewrite a new story. These sessions are so powerful. So if you're curious and you want to dive in and you want to explore more, I'll link a link into the show notes for you so that you can have a look and book an ancestral healing session with me. During these sessions, I also use light language to help clear some of these stories and to rewrite the codes. And I always set you soul work to do at the end of these sessions, because I like to give you something where you then get to integrate that work into your life and you get to take responsibility beyond our time together, where you get to implement what you've discovered or witnessed or learned in that session. You then get to take that into your own life and implement it so that you start to see the changes happening in your reality. So I really look forward to journeying with you. And if you want to go even deeper than that, then I recommend coming to my longer term container, the Liberated Woman. That's an 8-month container where we use a combination of breath work, ancestral healing, and light language and energy clearing and coaching and all sorts of different things to really go deeply into your ancestral wounding and also into your birth script of how you arrived on this earth, what stories you're carrying from your birth, and how we can move through those patterns of behavior. And this longer term container is like, it's my highest touch container. So with that, you get 2 sessions a month, you get Telegram support in between, you get discounts to any of my events or online workshops, and really you get a lot of close proximity to me so that we can work really deeply together. And I love this. I love doing the deeper work, because one-off sessions are amazing and I'm happy to do them. But when we go in like all in and we like devote ourselves to the longer journey, there's so much more that can come up. And I just love working with my long-term clients. Like, we form this beautiful sisterhood. We form this like sister connection. And honestly, if if they weren't my clients, I think I'd end up being besties with them and have them around for dinner. So that's the kind of container that I like to create. It's very loving, it's very nurturing, but it's also like noble, not bull. I won't take your bullshit. So I'm like your blunt best friend, but I'm also your hype girl, but I'm also this deep cosmic oracle woman that's going to come in with all the magic. So it's a whole combination of incredible things. So again, I'm going to link that for you in the show notes. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast episode today. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. I love you all. Wishing you a beautiful, magical day.